back, everyone. Tonight, we turn our focus to the leadership and activities of Governor Dauda Lawal, the Executive Governor of Zamfara State. Since assuming office, the administration of Governor Lawal says it has embarked on an ambitious reform agenda aimed at restoring peace, rebuilding institutions, and reviving critical sectors, from the deployment of the community protection guards to curbing security, declaring states of emergency in education and health. His administration has signaled a strong commitment to transformative governance. In this conversation tonight, we'll explore the key policies, challenges, and milestones of his government and examine what they mean for the future of Zamfara State. Your Excellency, good evening to you. Thanks a lot for joining us this evening.
Good evening. How are you?
Very fine. Thank you for speaking with us today. Especially at the time when the state is undergoing critical transformations in security, governance, and development. Our last conversation was in January, and what I took away from that conversation was your commitment and steps in towards tackling long-standing challenges, from restoring peace in rural communities to revitalizing education. We also looked at healthcare sector, economic growth. But how far have you gone with staying true to this commitment as we count down to year 2?
Well, thank you very much for this opportunity again. Like you rightly mentioned, we had a conversation sometimes last year about what we're doing in Zamfara State and some of the challenges we're facing. And I told you we're making conscious efforts to change the narrative as far as Zamfara State is concerned. Of course, number one has always been the security situation in the state, which led to the creation of the Community Protection Guard when we took over power. That is number one. Number two, education, because without education, like I always said, we cannot move forward as a state and as a nation. And that's one reason why we had to declare state of emergency in the area of education. And of course, the health sector. We also had to declare state of emergency in the health sector, having realized the challenges in those sectors. And I'm happy to say that in all these sectors, we're making significant progress. Of course, security has always been number one, because without security, basically, you can't do anything, you can't move forward. And which was one of the reasons why we set up the Community Protection Guard, and they're doing exceptionally well in collaboration with other security agencies. It's one of the reasons why I'm sure you saw today where the state government donated 140 brand new vehicles to all the security agencies in the state, which shows we're really committed to the security of our people, because we have to do whatever we can as a state and as government to protect lives and properties of our people. And I believe we're doing incredibly well, and we'll continue to do that until we get it over and over.
All right. And with practical examples, Mr. Governor, has that been an update to your administration strategies to addressing this persistent banditry and insecurity in the state? I mean, impressively today, which you have also addressed, your administration provided about 140 operational vehicles for security agencies. How are you working with federal security agencies to restore peace in rural communities?
Well, I mean, these 140 vehicles, obviously, they are going to all the federal security forces. Of course, number one that will benefit the most is the police as well as the army. About 40 of those vehicles are going to the police, and some are going to the army, as well as about 20 of that will also go to the civil defense. DSS are also part of it, as well as our own creation of the Community Protection Guard. So basically, you can see that we are working with the federal government, because all these other forces, like the police, the army, the civil defense, all belongs to the federal government.
But of course, you know,
so that's part of our collaboration with the federal government.
Right there. But how effective has the establishment of the Zamfara Community Protection Guard been in curbing banditry and enhancing security across the states? Because, you know, we hear governors talk about how they try to empower, or they empower these state security guards. But of course, when you speak to residents of the states, they say otherwise. But for you, talk to us, I mean, has there been any successes with these local vigilante groups?
Well, I think they have transcended beyond local vigilante group, I can say, because we went through process. First of all, we went through legislation to establish the Community Protection Guard, and all those people that were employed were profiled by the State Security Service. And like I always said, these people are all from their respective local government. And these are people that understand the terrain much, much better than the conventional security. And therefore, they assist the conventional security in terms of locating this bandit and other logistics in all the local government. And I can tell you that without mixing what these guys are doing incredibly well in terms of being the first line of defense whenever there's such attack in any of these local government. So for anybody to say they are not doing well, I think they are not being fair, or maybe there's some political motive in this whole thing.
But Your Excellency, I don't think it's about whether or not they are doing well. It's about how empowered are they?
Well, they are fully empowered because what else do they need? They are fully employed. Their salary is being paid as at when due. We provide all the necessary logistics in terms of the weapons, in terms of the ammunitions, in terms of all the kits, bulletproof jackets, helmets, as well as their movement. Remember, when we launched that security outfit, we provided vehicles for them as well as motorcycles that will be able to move around all those locations in the state. And they're still doing that. And we still provide more and more on a daily basis or as a need, on a need basis. So we're doing so much in that area. And they're being taken care of comfortably. And of course, you know, there may be casualties here and there, and we also do take care of the families of those who lost their lives.
All right, I wanted to go there. But again, what measurable impacts have resulted from this administration's ban on illegal mining activities? I mean, considering their link to insecurity in the entire region.
Well, I'm sure you're aware recently the federal government has lifted the ban on mining. And if you remember also, we went round to some of these mining areas where some private sector are making significant investment in that area. As a matter of fact, there's a factory now that is fully set up, and they are about to commence operation in Anchor local government. And this is in collaboration with the private sector as well as the state government. And we're doing all this because this is an area where we have comparative advantage, and therefore we have to develop the mining sector. And by the time we do that, you know, that is creating additional employment, and that is more revenue to both federal government as well as the state government. So we're just trying round the clock to make sure we formalize that sector so that people can move from artisanal mining into the latest sophisticated mining that applies all over the world. And that's the way forward.
All right then. 50 new buses to improve the state's mass transit and commercial transportation system. One estimated this move, Your Excellency, and isn't that number too small?
No. You know, when you're going to start something, you don't start big. First of all, you need to start somewhere. So I believe 50 buses is a very, very reasonable number to start with, because we need to also fine-tune the whole process, because previous governments have done that. But when I ask you now, can you show me one single vehicle from the previous administration? Absolutely, the answer is no. So it's not about the number. It's about the quality. How did they operate? And that is why we have to put certain modalities in place. First of all, we're going to subsidize transportation for the poor masses. Two, government is also going to get revenue in terms of maintaining these vehicles so that we can have more money to buy more that we can use within the state as well as outside the state. So I think 50 is a reasonable number to start with, depending on some of the challenges we see, and if we're able to fine-tune those challenges, then...
So what exactly are the challenges, Your Excellency?
The challenges is in terms of the revenue that, you know, we're getting. There are a lot of leakages. in most cases, these transporters, I mean, these buses, or you call them, they end up in private pockets. And that is what we're trying to avoid, because whatever you want to do, you should make sure it's something that is sustainable, not something that you just start and then the next minute it collapses. No, that's not the way to go about it. And that is why we're fine-tuning the whole process. We employed a fleet management system, and we're also using technology to track what is happening within the transportation sector so as to cushion the effects of our poor people, but at the same time also get revenue for government. Because remember, we need to maintain these vehicles. Sometimes, I mean, there may be tire problem, there may be engine problem, there may be all sort of problem. So we need to make sure whenever such happens, at least that can be taken care of immediately by the same transport company. That is the whole essence.
But also, I'm curious, what are your priorities for economic revitalization in your state, particularly in agriculture and mining?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you very well. What was the question?
Did you get my question? Okay, what are your priorities for economic revitalization in Zamfara State, particularly in agriculture and mining?
Well, first of all, we're doing so much in terms of the mining sector, like I explained to you, by bringing private sector investors to invest in the mining sector. That is number one. In terms of agriculture, like I always said also, agriculture is where we have comparative advantage as far as Zamfara State is concerned, because Zamfara State is an agrarian economy. I was in China 2 months ago to understand the concept of their own agriculture by using latest technology in terms of, some of the implements. And what I saw there was quite impressive, and I've signed MOU. In fact, we went ahead as government to procure those implements, which we are going to use in Zamfara State. And by the time they arrive, we start using them. That will also boost agriculture in Zamfara State. And we are moving from subsistence farming into mechanized and more like capital kind of intensive farming, which in the long run will be able to feed ourselves and also be able to get some money to do other things in that area. And I believe if we are able to get it right, that will also go a long way in solving most of the problems in terms of banditry, in terms of kidnapping, and so many other things, because it's part of the economic development of a state. And this is something that I believe if we get it right, it will go a long way in solving most of these issues. And that will also empower the people, because our people are basically farmers. And
I think you're very big on generating more revenue for the state. But I'm concerned about how your administration is attracting private sector investment into Zamfara State.
Well, first of all, what we're doing is we look at the critical infrastructure, because no matter how you want to entice someone, if you don't have the basic infrastructure in place, nobody will come and spend his money in the state. And that is why we are spending so much money in terms of building roads, drainages, and so many other economic empowerment. Right now we are rebuilding all those centers where we will train our people to be self-reliant. And in fact, it's one of those areas that we're going to commission as part of our second-year anniversary across all the 14 local government, so that people will learn skills. And once they learn skills, all they need is just a little push in terms of capital requirement, and the government is ready to give them that kind of starter pack. And I'm sure by the time we do that, it will generate economic activities. And right now, I mean, there's a lot of economic activities in the state. And I was just saying to someone that, look, even in terms of salary, on a monthly basis, we look at how much money we're paying in terms of salary. We're paying almost 7 billion naira from state as well as local government, plus the pension. So on a monthly basis, there is 8 billion naira in circulation. Also, there's a lot of contract going on, contractual activities in terms of building the hospital, building school, building road, and so on and so forth. So that also creates economic activities in the state. If you go around now, I mean, you see how, people are smiling and, going about their business because there's always something to do. So this is part of creating some of those economic activities so that at least if we're able to get it right in the next couple of maybe months, you know, all this will be history as far as Zamfara State is concerned.
All right. So let's talk about education. And this is simply because you declared a state of emergency. And, you know, Zamfara people and Nigerians are wondering, looking forward to the kind of progress that has been made in terms of school.
I can't hear you. It's a bit faint.
Can you hear me now, Your Excellency? I want us to talk about education because, can you hear me now?
Hello? Okay, yes.
Right.
Better.
Right. I want us to talk about education because since you declared a state of emergency about a year and a half ago, Zamfara people and particularly Nigerians have been looking forward to the kind of progress that has been made in terms of school renovations, teacher recruitment, and student enrollment. Talk to us about that.
Okay. Thank you very much. Like you rightly pointed out, sometimes, I think January 2024, I declared state of emergency in the area of education, having realized the challenges the state is facing in that aspect. And I'm happy to say that now. In terms of building schools and renovating schools, we have done over 450 schools fully renovated and furnished. Your reporters are here. They are free to go around all the local government and see what we've done. In fact, tomorrow by 1 o'clock, we are going to visit one of the schools to see exactly what we have done in that aspect. That is one. Two, we were able to settle all the outstanding of NACO and WAEC. So our students now have written all their WAEC and NACO, and from what I heard, they have done extremely well. Just last month, I authorized the Commissioner of Education to employ 500 teachers in special fields, and that is ongoing. And this is all to build capacity because it's not about just building the school or renovating the school, but you also need to have the manpower that should be able to teach our children. And that is why we are employing these 500 teachers across all the states that will man all those schools. And also, if you look at some of the new development now in terms of these gifted children, I'm sure you're aware that Zamfara State became second after Anambra State, which means the emergency declaration is working. And also, there was another contest in terms of the best principals in Nigeria, and I'm happy to say that Zamfara State came first. It's there, it's on record. So, I mean, there are positive things going on as far as education is concerned. And that is the way forward, because without education, basically, we cannot move forward. But I'm happy from what I've seen. Things are really getting better. And your reporters, like I said, they're here. We're going to go to one of the schools in Gusau, and I'm also going to take around all the 14 local government to see what we have done in primary school, as well as secondary school, and even the tertiary institution. And therefore, the emergency declaration is working perfectly.
All right, Your Excellency, when we come back from this break, we'll talk about the Agile program implementation and the outcome of that project. Please stay with us, everyone. Welcome back to Politics Tonight. Thanks a lot for staying with us, everyone. Governor of Zamfara State, Dauda Lawal, is on the program tonight to talk to us about his mission and vision for the state as we count down to year 2. Your Excellency, thanks a lot for staying with us on the program. The Agile program implementation, how is the Adolescent Girls Initiative for Learning and Empowerment program, how is it going? Talk to us about the implementation of that program.
Sorry, what program you said?
The Agile program, the Agile Girls for Initiative program. I want you to talk to us about the implementation of that program.
The Agile, okay.
Yes,
okay.
I know it was to address the issue of out-of-school children in the state.
Absolutely. Part of the challenges the state is facing is in the area of girl-child education. And we're making conscious efforts, first of all, to identify some of the areas where we need to build new schools in order to accommodate the number of out-of-school girls in the states. And that has started long ago. We've started constructing new schools for the girl-child education. And we also came with a lot of incentives in terms of making it free for all the girls to go to school, as well as sensitizing parents, because part of the problem is sometimes you need to make the parent understand that they should allow their girls to go to school, not just to give them for marriage. And I believe that is working, because I've received a lot of reports now from different communities saying that, please, we should come and cite some of those schools in their location. So which means the sensitization program is working very well. And it is something that we're giving serious consideration. And in just a matter of time, you will see how far we've gone in terms of building those schools and some of the programs lined up for girl-child education. Just give us some few months, and we will brief you as far as how far we've gone. But so far, so good.
All right, we'll be waiting for that. But are there specific plans to support youth empowerment and entrepreneurship in Zamfara State?
Just yesterday, I was in one of the local government in Faye, where we distributed 75,000 naira to a lot of people within the state in order to empower them to start something that they can be self-reliant. And this is just a program that was launched yesterday. We had done similar program, I think about 4 months ago, under Agile, Agile, where some people got some money across the 14 local government as a startup package for them to start new business so that they can be self-reliant. And as we speak right now, we are going to go around all the 14 local government to give them a startup pack on how they start business. And by the time they do that, I'm sure, based on what we're preaching to them, we're giving this money
you just
not for them to go and
startup
marry
pack.
again,
Is
or
that
buy a new car or motorcycle. No, it's for them to start a business.
Okay.
So that is also ongoing. And I believe by the time we go around all the 14 local government, it will also change the narrative so that people can begin to do something meaningful, something that they can be, self-reliant and that is sustainable.
All right. The issue of internal displacement remains one of the most pressing challenges confronting your state. And the last time you spoke to me about why your administration is emphasizing the importance of domesticating the national policy on IDPs to safeguard the rights and welfare of displaced persons. What measures are in place to support IDPs and, rebuild affected communities in Zamfara State?
I can hardly hear what you said because it's very, very faint. So if you don't mind taking that again, so that I'll be able to answer you properly.
All right.
What was the question, please?
The conversation is about the issue of internally displaced persons in Zamfara State. Can you hear me now, Your Excellency?
Private displaced person.
Yes, displaced persons. And I remember that the last time you spoke to me about why your administration is emphasizing the importance of domesticating the national policy on IDPs. You said it would safeguard the rights and welfare of displaced persons. So what measures are in place to support IDPs and rebuild affected communities in Zamfara State?
Let me make an attempt to answer you, even though I didn't hear you very well. You're talking about IDPs and what government is doing to take care of the IDPs?
Yes.
Was that the question?
Yes, that's the question.
Okay. Right now, we realize there are quite a number of IDPs scattered all over the states. And what we're doing right now, we're building centers where some of these people will be accommodated. But not only that, the security situation is improving right now, so most of these people are back to their respective villages. Of course, there are some few that are hanging here and there, trying to see what the security situation is going to be like. And those ones are accommodated temporarily before we decide on taking them back to their respective villages and also give them something to start farming, because last year, a lot of them were able to go to their farm, and we hope with the current situation, most of these people should be able to go back to their respective village and do their farming there. So it is something that we are looking at, how things or how events will unfold, but at the same time making conscious effort to make sure if for whatever reason they are fully taken care of. So it's an ongoing process,
and I know that
depending on the circumstances.
Right, and I know that the state cannot handle this alone. So what kind of conversation are you having with the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs on the strategies for perhaps the achievement of collaborative and durable solutions for displaced populations in your state? What kind of conversation are you having with the minister?
Minister of where?
Minister of Humanitarian Affairs.
Oh, no, there's a fantastic relationship between the state government and the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs. As a matter of fact, his people were here 2 weeks ago to also bring some relief materials that we can distribute to other local governments. And in some places where there are flood and so on, in fact, they are always there to assist. So there is a very, very good understanding and collaboration between state government as well as the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs. So, and I think so far so good. They are doing their best, and the state government is also doing its best in making sure there's a proper understanding and collaboration between the two organs of government. Right.
Let's go back to education because, you know, critics say that lack of basic education accounts for why bandits have a huge reservoir of recruits on which they continuously tap from. And you're said to me before now that education is free in Zamfara State. And the last time we had this conversation, I wanted to know when it would become not only free, but compulsory. When would that be, Mr. Governor?
What about that in education? Sorry, the
Yes.
plan is not very clear, unfortunately.
I wanted us to talk about basic education in Zamfara State because, you know, critics say that the lack of basic education in your state accounts for why bandits have a huge reservoir of recruits on which they, you know, continuously tap from. You've said to me that education is free in Zamfara State. And I also remember that last time we had this conversation, I wanted to know when it would become not only free but compulsory. So when would that be, Your Excellency? Free and compulsory education in Zamfara State.
We part of the reason, like, you know, when we declare state of emergency in the state is to make sure education is given its proper place within the society. Because without education, I mean, basically nothing will happen. So in that area, we're doing so much in terms of enlightenment and also making education free. So as people, because part of the challenges we're facing here is, apart from the fact that, I mean, the schools are so dilapidated and everything, which that has been taken care of by rebuilding and refurbishing all those schools, furnishing the school and everything, even to pay for those schools, I mean, it's a major challenge. So we set up some kind of committees to understand what can we do in terms of providing basic scholarship so that people can be able to go to school freely without thinking of, you know, paying some of these fees, which is part of what is discouraging them to go to school. And that is also something that we keep fine-tuning from time to time to understand where do we need to really pay so much attention, even in the area of education. There are some special areas that we are truly lacking, and that is why we're making conscious effort to, first of all, employ the teachers that will be able to teach in the area of mathematics, sciences, technical education, as well as IT. And we're getting a lot of people now into school, and we're paying for their school so that they can learn properly. Remember also part of the challenges we had in the past was non-payment of JAM, non-payment of WAEC and NECO. That has been fully settled by my administration, so that has become history. And people were able, I mean, students were able to sit down and write their WAEC and NECO this time around. From what I heard, they've done very well. I'm still waiting to see the final result so that we will know exactly where we are and what we need to do going forward.
All right, Your Excellency, it's important for us to take a break at this moment so we can address this challenge. I mean, it's important for us to have a clear conversation. I'll be right back, everyone. Welcome back, everyone. This is Politics Tonight, and I've been speaking with the Governor of Zamfara State, Dauda Lawal, on his mission and vision for the people of the state. Your Excellency, thanks a lot for staying with us on the program. Let's move on quickly. You know, a lot of times Nigerian governors focus on the urban centers in the states because of the kinds of visibility and exposure it gives to the administration. I want you to talk about how your administration is tackling healthcare access, especially in remote areas.
Can you say that again?
How is the administration tackling healthcare access, especially in remote areas?
Oh no, we're doing so much in all the 14 local government in terms of education, in terms of healthcare, infrastructure. Basically, there is no local government in Zamfara State that we have not spent between 5 to 10 billion in all these critical sectors. I will still take your crew round all the 14 local government to see what we have done in all those 14 local government, either in the area of education, primary education, secondary education, or tertiary education. In the area of health, as we speak now, we are renovating over 300 primary health care centers in the state across all the 14 local government areas. We have upgraded most of the primary health care centers to proper hospital, fully equipped in all these local government areas. In some areas, we provided water for them. And in some areas, we're building road. So we're doing everything in all the 14 local government areas. It's not just limited to Gusau City, which is the capital. And like I said, I will take your crew round, and I'm sure they will speak for us in terms of what we're doing in other local government areas in the states.
Well, I want to talk to you about politics, but before then, how do you plan to ensure transparency and accountability in the use of public funds?
I couldn't hear that.
All right, let me repeat that. How do you plan to ensure transparency and accountability in the use of public funds? Did you get that, Your Excellency?
You see, my government, or rather my administration, is fully committed to transparency. Everything we do, our books are open, and anybody can come and check what we're doing. So we are very, very transparent, and accountability is the key principle of my administration. And I'm sure we're doing extremely well in that area. Like I said, we are open for anybody to come and check what we're doing. And we usually hold quarterly meetings with all the commissioners, permanent secretaries, directors, and head of agencies to understand where we are in terms of our finances and where we need to be and what kind of revenue we're generating within the state. So we don't have issue with that. We're very, very transparent, and we hold people accountable in whatever they do in the state. There's process in place now.
All right then. But Your Excellency, what is happening with the State of Assembly? What we have seen in the past few weeks is the emergence of a parallel House of Assembly formed by 10 lawmakers, previously suspended by the current leadership of the state legislature. And some of them have alleged that you're behind their suspension. How do you react to such allegation?
What allegation?
That you're behind their suspension. Did you get that, Your Excellency?
Sorry, say
it's about what is happening in the state of Assembly. Can you hear me, sir?
Oh, no. I mean, well, there's some kind of crisis at the State Assembly, and that is purely an internal thing within the legislature. And we're doing everything humanly possible to see that, you know, they settle their differences, whatever it is, as far as my administration is concerned. So the process is also ongoing. I'm sure you're aware that one of them that was with the other side has now come back to us. And we're making conscious effort to understand what really the challenges are, so that we can move forward. I don't think this is the time we need to, there's so much that we need to do as a state. It's a state that has faced too many challenges. So I think my concern and appeal to these people, let them just come back so that we can build a better Zamfara State rather than all these distractions here and there. I don't think it will go well for the people. They are serving the people. So they should all come, let's put hands together and build a better Zamfara State.
Because, you know, some faction of the State of Assembly say they have asked you to represent the 2025 budget within 1 month. Some of the suspended legislators actually allege political victimization of for raising security concerns. How do you respond to those claims?
How do I reform to what?
The claims, you know, some faction of the State of Assembly say they have asked you to represent the 2025 budget within 1 month. And some of the suspended legislators actually allege political victimization for raising security concerns. How do you respond to those claims?
Those are just political statements. You know, the majority of numbers are here, and they can testify to the fact that we are following due process in everything that we do. So I don't think that information is correct. But of course, I mean, as politicians, they'll always find something to say, but that is not correct. Get the true information from the serving members who are here and they're doing their legislative functions in the state, and everything is going as planned.
All right. So finally, before I let you go, Your Excellency, I know you have other commitments. What measures are in place to ensure a timely payment of salaries and gratuities to civil servants and retirees? And finally, how has it affected the morale and productivity?
Well, I'm happy to say that every retiree from 2013 to date have been fully paid. For 13 years, the government or the previous administration did not pay pension and gratuity. And I'm happy to tell you that I have cleared all the backlog to the tune of 13.6 billion naira fully paid to everybody. So we don't have any pending issue as at now. Maybe the only one that we may have is from 2024 to date, which is also going to be cleared between this month and next month, so that we don't owe anybody. And I'm also happy to tell you that we did not borrow a dime to execute all this project.
All right. That's great to know. Thanks a lot for joining us tonight. Executive Governor of Zamfara State, Governor Dauda Lawal. Thank you so much for your time, and we look forward to more conversations with you. Thank you so much. Have a great night.
Thank you very much. Looking forward to speaking to you again very soon.
All right. Thanks a lot. And thank you very much for watching, everyone. That marks the end of today's episode of Politics Tonight. But before we go, let's tell you that the views and reactions of our resource persons are theirs and have no connection with TVC News. Meanwhile, you can watch the repeat broadcast of this episode at 15:15 midnight. Get in touch with us on our social media handles, Facebook, Instagram, and X at TVC News NG and at Olajumoke Olatunji using the hashtag Politics Tonight. We're also on YouTube at youtube.com/TVC News NG. I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Good night, everyone.